Welcome to A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. This is the place to be for stories to inspire and uplift when life doesn't go according to our plans. I'm Laura Muirhead, your host and the reigning queen of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. I can't wait to share the plot twist stories of my guests that will inspire and uplift you when life didn't follow the plan, right here on A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life podcast. Hello, and welcome to this episode of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. I'm your host, Laura Muirhead, and I am so happy to be joined today by Amayra Morales. Come and introduce yourself, Amayra, and tell us what you do and where you are in the world.
Yes. Hello, Laura. I am so excited to be here and connect with you. So right now I am in the magical Sacred Valley, Cusco, Peru. And I really love this place. It has so much magic to it. And I've been here for about 3 years. And I came here basically just as kind of like a self-discovery journey in August 2019. And I just thought I'd be here for like maybe 3 months. And then 3 months turned into 5 months, and then the pandemic happened. So I've been here since, but really loving this place, connecting with my roots, and learning a lot about myself.
Fabulous. So you are a Ayurvedic coach and a yoga instructor, is that right?
Yes, an Ayurvedic health coach and a yoga instructor. That's right.
Okay, but that's not where you started. That's not what you started out. You had a funny thing happen on the Way to My Life experiences, and tell us what you originally, like your original life journey, what that was when you started out.
Yeah, sure. So my story has, I guess, many layers to it, but I was born right here in Peru. And as terrorism kind of escalated in the early 90s, my family and I migrated to Sydney, Australia, hence my accent. But looking back, I guess, from a very young age, I had this kind of deep desire to help, and I just didn't know how to channel it. So at the age of 25, I went to live and work in Laos for Child Fund Australia. Then that ended. Then I went to volunteer at an orphanage in Cambodia. And then I ended up right here in Peru working for an NGO that looked after women and children who were victims of domestic abuse. Then I ran out of money, and I had no choice than to head back to Australia, where kind of the lure of the corporate world was really, really difficult for me to ignore. And I remember one night I was out with work colleagues having dinner and drinks, and I ended up going to the bathroom, and I was waiting in line, and this woman just kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and I will actually never really forget her because she was kind of like just a little bit taller than me. She had these bright blue eyes, blue eyeliner, red lipstick, and she said to me, I'm a psychic intuitive and I have a message for you. And this is me in the corporate world. I didn't believe in all this stuff. And she said to me, they are telling me that one day you will end up helping women using a healing modality from Asia. And she said, and I'm seeing herbs and they're showing me food. And I think I was like in this huge shock because firstly, in Australia, we have this personal space that people kind of respect. And she was kind of like, cross that. And the whole time I was thinking like, wow, what a Fruit Loop, which is, Australian slang for like a fool, a lunatic, no? And secondly, I didn't believe in psychics. I was in the corporate world. I was doing KPIs, meeting budgets, getting clients. Like to me, this is like, it was nothing to me, no? And I said to her, I don't think so. Like I'm in the corporate world and I'm going to be in the corporate world forever. So then I went back to my table of friends and I said, guess what? There was this Fruit Loop that told me, what she told me. And she said, who is she? And I remember just looking around, like trying to find her, and I couldn't find her. I even like walked around the restaurant and she was nowhere to be seen. And I was just like, okay, I didn't think much about it. I thought we were out for another 2 minutes and then I kind of just kept drinking and, out with friends. And then I kind of, started climbing the corporate ladder, and it felt amazing. With each new role, like I was getting more money, probably the ego kind of kicked in as well. But I realized that I was becoming more distant from that desire to really help people. And to be honest, Laura, I really lost myself in the corporate world, and the repercussions would eventually become really, really evident. And in the space of 2 years, I hit my lowest health point. I ended up going down to 40 kilos, which I think is like 90 pounds, maybe. I experienced thyroid problems, amenorrhea. I was losing my hair, indigestion, cracking joints. I felt cold all the time. I had racing thoughts, insomnia, anxiety. I was deficient in a whole host of vitamins and minerals. And it's no surprise that I actually ended up in hospital. And there's no bigger wake-up call than looking up at the ceiling of a hospital room and realizing that I had no one to blame but myself. Growing up, I kind of blamed my parents for this, blamed society for this, blamed my ex-boyfriend, but really, like, I had no one to blame. I had created this mess, and I had to start taking radical steps to get better and to feel happier. So then after I was released from hospital due to burnout, I went from specialist to specialist, really trying to find answers to my symptoms. And leaving each specialist appointment, I felt increasingly frustrated and misunderstood, because no one was able to give me any real answers apart from like, oh, everything looks fine. You just need to take these pills. We don't see anything major. Just take these pills. And nobody was able to get to the root cause or actually give me any explanation at all. And one day I actually worked out, if I had gone down the pharmaceutical route, I would have been on about 12 pills just to function as a regular human being. Because as you know, like, you take these pills, but you also need to take these pills because of your liver and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, wow, 12 pills just, to function. And I don't know if your audience or yourself can relate to that, but it is such a kind of really frustrating experience with modern medicine. So then one day I kind of looked around the office and I decided that my time in the rat race was over. The following week, I resigned, and within 6 weeks, I was on my way to India to do my yoga teacher training. And I know it sounds quite easy, but the decision actually was not an easy one, because I come from quite a strict Latin family, and I knew my decision to quit a job, which was giving me so much abundance in their eyes, came at a price. And you see, my parents left Peru because they wanted a brighter future for me. Ultimately, what they value is very different to what I value. They value safety, security, stability, and knowing, there's a paycheck coming in every month. But really, to me, I started to question a lot of things, in my life. Is there more to life than going to uni, getting married, having kids, paying taxes, waiting like in anticipation for my 4 weeks of annual leave each year, and then sitting in a nursing home and then moving on to my next life? And I just thought, surely there is more to life in this. And I started to question every aspect of my life, my career, my life in Sydney. I was going through a breakup. Overall, I would say that I was really, really miserable. And now I had to deal with the fact that I was disappointing my parents. And I remember one day I was sitting at the beach just looking at the sunset, and I just thought, this is it. If not now, when? So off I went to India, a place that really never appealed to me. Like, the food to me was like, not my style. And the culture was like, no, it was nothing about India that appealed to me. I was purely there just to do my yoga teacher training because I loved yoga. And after my yoga teacher training, I got really, really sick. And due to fortunate events, I ended up at an Ayurvedic clinic. And as soon as I walked in, I thought, wow, like, get me out of here. What am I doing here? Like, it smells oily. There are women with saris, and there's chakra charts on the wall, and the whole place just seemed a little bit like not what a proper doctor's clinic is. So then I was led to the doctor's office, and he really started to ask me really weird, random questions like, what are your dreams like? What do you crave? What are your parents' health history like? And right there and then, I almost lost interest because those questions had nothing to do with why I was there. Like, all I wanted was my medication. This time I really wanted medication and to simply just get out of there, you know? And I almost said to him, I actually don't even think this is for me. Then he started to list out all these things that I thought to myself, wow, how does he know all this from just reading my pulse, looking at my tongue, and asking all these random questions? And finally, he had my attention because he said to me, you have a severe vata imbalance. And if you keep it up, you're looking at infertility, Alzheimer's, osteoporosis. And I said to him, no, I mean, I'm 35. And he smirked, yes, you may be 35, but you're actually someone like, your body is like of someone in your 50 years. And I was like, wow, nothing crushes your soul more than knowing that, you know, if you keep going down this road, this is exactly, you know, where you're heading. So I took his advice for 2 weeks. I locked myself in my room and I ate the food that he told me, took the herbs, did the breath techniques. And I remember one night crying in my room because for the first time ever, I felt connected to my body. Then I thought to myself, surely I'm not alone in this. And if I'm going through this, surely other women are experiencing something very similar, no? And also, why don't people know Ayurveda? Like, I closed my eyes and I said, one day I'm going to be an Ayurveda practitioner of some description, and I'm going to help women just like me, because I'm sure I'm not the only one going through this. And then I checked into his 21-day Panchakarma, which is like a detox program, which sounds amazing because it's at a spa and everything, but it is hard work. It's not like the Hilton, for example, no? But after it, I felt amazing. And it was challenging for various reasons, but it was mainly the stillness that was very challenging for me because I was such an ungrounded person. I remember one day he said to me, okay, so you're just going to sit in front of this window for 4 hours and you're just going to stare out onto the yard. And I just thought, what do you mean? He's like, there is so much to discover there, but you're so living in your head that for you, like, it's just a tree, but there are bugs, there is this, there is that. Look at it all, observe it. And that to me was probably one of the most challenging things, because I always needed to be doing something. And I remember he said to me, just do it. And I remember I had probably like one of the best sleeps that night because I was so connected to my body and living out of my head, no? And then on the last day of my treatment, just before I left, I said to him, so what happens when I actually like heal all my digestive issues? And he said, you will discover your dharma. And at that time, I had like no idea what he meant by this. But fast forward 4 years and it all kind of finally makes sense, no? I am the healthiest I have ever been. I live in this magical place in Peru. I am surrounded by Pachamama, Mother Earth. I use plant medicine to just keep healing. I go to ecstatic dance. I nourish my body with amazing, fresh cooked food. And I have the tools now to come back into balance when things go a little bit haywire. And above all, I am helping professional women regain control of their health, their life, their happiness through the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda. So that's kind of like the shorter version of my story.
I have to say how much I love all of this. So, first of all, when you're talking about the psychic coming up and talking to you, that just gave me goosebumps and chills because for somebody to just and for you to like look around and to try to find her in the in the restaurant and then she's like not there. It's like, some sort, obviously, a messenger from the universe for you. Whether it's right or wrong for somebody to step over into your energy like that, she obviously did. But I can so relate to the modern medicine things with all the pills and several years ago, I was having some issues. I thought it was my leg. Honestly, I thought it was my knee.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out, and I, was going through traditional doctors and trying to get it solved. And at the same time, I was doing, had to do my annual blood work, and they claimed that it was fine, but how I looked at it and I was like, this level is not fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, because of all that, they sent me to physical therapy, and that made it worse. And I ended up at a acupuncture holistic
Mm-hmm.
doctor who was an acupuncturist. And first time ever that any doctor was like, you need to read this book and you need to read this book. And same kind of similar to your situation. She's asking me questions that I was like, I don't see how these relate to anything. Why are you asking me these questions? And she taught me so much. And I spent a couple years with her, and I had issues with discs in my back. And right at the same time that I was like, well, let's try her, I had gone for an MRI, and and that sent me to a surgeon, a back surgeon, who of course wanted me to have back surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience with people that I know who have had back surgery don't just have one back surgery. They're down that road, right? So I was like, well, here's my thing. I'm going to try acupuncture. And if that doesn't work, I can always go back and have an operation. I never had an operation. And this has been, yeah. But she also didn't just it wasn't just like the magic of acupuncture. She said, here's exercises for you to do. And then I would go in and she'd say, well, how often are you doing these? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing them twice a day. And she's like, oh, no, no, you need to do them, way more than that. And I'm like, oh. So like the first doctor in my experience who kind of gave me back the power of taking care of my own body. And so I love what you said about that. And I actually recently thought that I broke my toe and went to the emergency room, and they said, oh, well, what prescriptions are you on? And I'm like, I'm not on any prescriptions. And they're like, you're not on any prescriptions? You don't take any prescriptions? And I'm like, no. So I love this message that you have of healing your own body. I also find it super interesting to be like, okay, sit here and look out for 4 hours and get out of your head. And especially coming, I think, well, for all of us, whether we're in the corporate world or we're not, our brains are going all the time, and we're filling our brains with whatever it is, whether it's social media or whatever. Like, I've got to do this now, I've got to do that. And then probably, especially, this is probably a great time of year to be having this episode going out to our audience when you're like piled on with the extra things of the holidays and the extra stuff that's happening. But I feel like, especially with you being in the corporate world, coming from the corporate world and being on that, like, okay, what next, and really getting that in your energy, that to end up being burnt out. Probably for us looking now, for you looking back, you're probably not completely surprised by whatever got into your body and your energy that would lead you to burnout.
Totally. And I think as well, like, I remember in the corporate world, people were just popping pills left, right, and center. Like, I remember looking around and I don't know, like this tablet, that tablet. And I was just like, wow. So in the West, we're so used to having a quick fix, no? So when I speak to clients and I say, okay, let's try this for like a few weeks, no, see how this particular, diet goes for you, this particular lifestyle, these particular practices. And at the beginning, I do notice their hesitation, right? Because because mostly they've gone to the doctor and the doctor's just like, okay, well, just take this sleeping pill if you can't sleep, right? But never really getting to the root cause of why you're not sleeping. Is it anxiety? What are your cortisol levels like? So yeah, in the corporate world, I was just used to just people like just going, just constantly going. So for me to actually just be like in stillness was very challenging. And even when I speak to clients now and I say, okay, let's have some tech-free time, I don't know, an hour and a half before you go to bed. And I remember one of my clients and she was like, well, what do I do with my hands? And I think we're so used to just like picking up the phone and checking Instagram, seeing what that person's up to. And it's just like, how about you do some rolling on the mat? How about you do some meditation, some nidra, nidra yoga and all that stuff. So it's really interesting. All our minds are kind of really, really busy right now. And to come into stillness is very challenging for some of us.
And I would probably say that I'm guilty of that now also of, feeling like, okay, what can I be, like I said, what can I pick up? What can I look at? What can I do? Frequently, maybe saying I'm watching a movie but I'm scrolling through whatever and I'm not really paying attention to the movie or completely to what I'm looking at because you're trying to listen to the movie and relax, oh yeah, we'll relax and watch a movie. No, we're not doing that either,
Yeah.
so I think that's really interesting. Or, like when you're saying what do I do before bed? Maybe take a nice bath and or, do whatever. But yeah, I love this. So I wanted to ask you, when what drew you to India? Was it, you tell me, I'm not going to suppose.
Yeah. So for me, it was nothing, like I said at the beginning, like the culture, the food, everything about it, nothing really, really appealed to me. The only thing that really appealed to me was yoga. And obviously that was the home of yoga. And when I was looking around to do my yoga teacher training, I could have done it in Thailand, in Spain, in Australia, right, wherever. But for some reason, I just thought, I'm just going to give this a go. And it's only going to be for 6 weeks because I'm going to get my yoga teacher training certificate. Then I'm going to come back to Sydney and I'm going to teach yoga and I'm going to make lots of money. In my mind, that's what I thought, right? And during my time in India, I obviously got really sick and I ended up actually meeting a boy. So he was like, why are you going back to Sydney? Like, there's so much to discover here in India. And I was like, no, like, I just want to go home. So it was actually thankfully to him that he was like, let's go traveling. And back then, I didn't believe in past lives or anything like that as well. But I remember the more I traveled around India, I was like, there's a weird feeling here, like I've been here before, like I'm familiar with this place. And then all of a sudden, like after I got better during my panchakarma, like I went traveling more and I discovered more and more. And I was just like, this is weird. And then that's when I started to discover, past lives and all of that. And I'm like, I have had a past life here and for sure in Sri Lanka and for sure in Nepal, because I ended up traveling around that part of the world quite a lot for my initial plan was like 6 weeks, but I ended up staying like for 9 months all up because I just kept getting more into like meditation, more into yoga. I started learning more about Ayurveda. And I remember in my yoga teacher training course, because it was so hot in Bangalore, like by 3 p.m., nobody's paying attention to the teacher. But we had an Ayurvedic teacher coming in just to give us a brief rundown of Ayurveda. And I think I was the only one alert. Everybody else was like, just in their own little world. But I was like, wow, the elements and the doshas and the gunas and everything. It was just so like amazing to me. It was like she was speaking like a language that I once knew. And then that's what kind of interested me into yoga, into Ayurveda. And then obviously then getting sick and landing in an Ayurvedic clinic, there's no coincidence there. Like I needed to get there eventually.
Well, and I love the quote unquote coincidences of like the synchronicity of you, okay, let's go travel through, India. But so can you share a little bit of what Ayurveda is about with the audience for those of us who I have seen the word, I kind of have an idea of what it's about, but can you share a little bit more about what it really, the practice it really is? I mean, there's probably a lot more than we have time for, but like the Cliff Notes version of what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine your audience being like, Ayu, what? So Ayurveda comes from two Sanskrit words, Ayur meaning life and Veda meaning knowledge or science. So Ayurveda says in order for you to be healthy, you must have knowledge of all aspects of life, right? Quite often we think about health in the West as just what you put in your mouth, However, that's just one part of the equation, because we also have to consider our emotional state. Are we happy with where we're living? Are we happy with what we're doing? Are we surrounded by amazing people that are, constantly uplifting us? And are you following your dharma, your reason why you're here, the big why? Are you fulfilling your life's desires? So as you can see in Ayurveda, everything is connected, the body, the mind, and the spirit, because it's a holistic approach to life. And this is what I was kind of lacking when I was living in Sydney and going from specialist to specialist, because each specialist would look at a particular part of my body, whereas Ayurveda looks at you in a holistic way. And Ayurveda is also the sister science of yoga, and are both actually meant to be practiced together. And I know, like, perhaps where you live, there's a yoga studio in every corner. But, I believe that Ayurveda is going to be following it pretty soon, because there's three sisters. There's Jyotish, which is the astrology part. There is Ayurveda, which is like, the lifestyle, the nutrition. And then there's yoga, obviously, So yoga looks at harmonizing the body. Ayurveda takes care of the physical and the mental well-being through nutrition and lifestyle. And they work beautifully because they work with the 5 elements, which is ether, which is air, water, fire, and earth. So, and then they come into the 3 doshas, which is vata, pitta, and kapha. So when you actually go to an Ayurvedic practitioner, they do like an analysis to determine what your dosha is, so what your unique constitution is. And we have all 3 doshas within us, but just in varying amounts. Now, those can go out of whack due to stress, due to lifestyle choices, due to seasons. So as an Ayurvedic practitioner, my job is to actually analyze which dosha you are and which one you're out of balance. So if you have too much vata, for example, that means it's the air quality. So you might suffer from insomnia, constipation, racing thoughts, too much gas and bloating. The mind is going crazy. And if you have the pitta dosha, for example, it's probably too much fire in the body. So acne, rosacea, irritation. And then if you have the kapha element, it means that there's too much grounding. So you're probably prone to depression. You're probably a little bit more on the heavier side. You're always looking after people and looking after yourself last. So my job is to bring you back into balance through nutrition, lifestyle practices, pranayama, meditation, so you can come back into balance.
So can these 3 different elements change during your life?
Of course. So when we're born, we're actually the kapha dosha. So that's really nourishing. That's why kids are really drawn to sweets and pasta, and, kids can sleep quite well. And then during the middle part of your life, we jump into the pitta. That's when we're working, we're working really hard, we're activating. And then we jump into our vata phase where, we're kind of slowing down. And so that's the vata is the end stage.
Interesting. So interesting. The other thing that I want to go back and touch on is you mentioned about your family, where you were, you clearly, maybe not so clearly, had you made these hard decisions for yourself. And were even with the thought of, okay, I'm going to go to India. I'm going to study yoga. I'm going to quit my corporate job. My family is just going to think I went off the rails, but yet you were somehow able to choose yourself in all of that. Can you talk about that a little bit? And, how were you strong enough to choose yourself in that way?
Yeah, so yeah, it wasn't definitely an easy decision. But now, like for example, my mother is like my number one fan, and she's telling her friends that, oh, my daughter can help you with nutrition if you're doing this. But back then it was really difficult. And I said, they definitely value different things than I do. But like I said, I was kind of in a really bad relation. I was ending a relationship. I was unhappy with work. I was unhappy with where I was living. So there were so many strikes against what I was doing. And then I had the disappointment of them. But I think for me, it was like finally choosing myself, because I can't constantly be living to appease them. Because obviously something has to give. Like my health was not great at all. And once I quit that job, like I started to come back into being more like relaxed and a lot calmer. And I was just like, okay. But I think it takes courage, especially for like migrant kids, to really to get out of that. I have a lot of, like back home in Sydney, I have some Indian friends, some Vietnamese friends who, their destiny is already set out for them by their family. They have to be lawyers and accountants and this and that. And I kind of started going down that route. But then I think we all have to hit a crisis of some description. And for me, it came in the form of a health crisis. And for me, I had to choose myself. And it was a bit icy at the beginning, my decision. But now, like, we probably have like the best relationship that I've had with them in a long time. Obviously, because of the distance, and obviously because they're just seeing, like, okay, even though she is not like, in the corporate world anymore, she's actually doing something that we would love to be doing, because they were migrants to Australia. They had to work, in jobs such as like cleaning and housekeeping and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas like I ended up doing that and it wasn't for me. And I knew that the more I went into it, the more unhappy I was going to be in my health. As the Ayurvedic doctor said, you're looking at a future with this and this and that. And I just thought to myself, while I was sitting there listening to him, this was the best decision that I've made, because now I have a system that actually understands me and I understand it as well. And I knew when I was going around in circles in specialist appointments in Sydney that nobody understood me, because I was like, basically I was screaming at them saying, no, there has got to be a better way. And I just thought to myself, surely there is a system out there that looks at me apart from just, ticking boxes on a sheet saying, oh, well, according to the Australian Heart Foundation, you should be having this kind of diet and you should be having these pills. And I knew intuitively, even though I wasn't spiritual back then, that there was another healing modality for me.
I love this. And are your parents still in Australia then?
Yeah, so I haven't seen them for about 3 years now. I'm probably due to go back soon, maybe next year, to see. I do miss them, and it'd be really amazing to see them. But I also think this distance has been really great for us, because they've had time to really deal with the fact that I am following my dharma and my life's purpose, the real reason why I'm here.
Well, and I also think that hopefully for parents that they can realize, like, as much as we want the best for our children. That, I mean, it really is what we want. And for the parents that are strict and think that a certain path is the best way, I think that I would imagine that, like, for your parents, when they do see you so happy and successful, like when those align, obviously those are going to align when
Mhm.
you are, when you are doing your life's work and successful, then it opens their eyes up and their consciousness up to a different, level of thinking as well, of like, oh, okay, yes, we are so happy that she's doing what makes her happy and she's successful at it. And this is the most beautiful thing. I would hope that that's what they, would see, what any parent would hope, what they would want for their children.
Yeah, exactly. And, in the Vedas, there is this notion of kriya, which is effortless flow, right? And sometimes we're going through life and we're trying to make things happen, but we hit a speed bump or, something along the road. And you're like, wow, I just went through that breakup. Why did I do what happened? No? But when you're actually going in kriya, like you're meeting the right people, you're meeting the right community, everything's kind of aligning. And this past kind of 3 years or 2 years has been about that for me. I've met a really great community here. I'm meeting the right mentors, the coaches, and everybody who's kind of aligning me to just keep going in this road. And, I remember, I had this deep desire to help people, and I thought I had to go abroad to work for NGOs, but now I'm channeling it through Ayurveda. And it's funny, learning all about Ayurveda and India, everything's kind of aligning for me. So every time I think of that woman at the restaurant, I'm just like, lady, if you are listening, if you're my angel or whatever, I thank you so much, because I have found it, and through Ayurveda, I found how disconnected I was in all aspects of my life. And I don't think I would have found that in Sydney, still working, in the corporate world. And now I actually look back at all my health issues as a gift, because it's something that I had to overcome to then go and help women, women who were confused and frustrated with modern medicine and who really want to take action, but just don't know who to turn to, because I didn't know who to turn to when I was in Sydney. And I guess I know too well how overwhelming it can be, can be for all these health crises, and not, a lot of us think that, health is the end goal. But I know it's shocking. Health is not the end goal. Good health is only part of the journey. The purpose of actually health is for you to go and then use it to fulfill your life's desires. Because when you have all these health issues, you're kind of consumed with all these food choices and diets and this and that you forget to look at the big picture. And the big picture is really that you are here to live your best life. And in an ideal world, that's where I would love to see, women putting their energy into, as opposed to like, how many calories are in these protein bars? Like, how many glasses of water have I had? And this is exactly why I love working with women and seeing, seeing their progress and transformation they achieve through their hard work and commitment to change.
This is so beautiful. That is amazing. And I mean, I don't know who wouldn't be drawn to wanting to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I also think, like, when you're talking about like things being easy in your life and connecting with the right people, and like, again, the quote unquote synchronicities, it reminds me of like a river. You can either go with the river and the current, or you can try to go against it, and it's not going to work to go against it. You're not going to go upstream. But then also, like you're saying, sometimes you hit a bump, like maybe you get snagged on a rock on the way downstream, and things have to be dealt with, right? So yeah, I mean, and those things are frequently lessons, or reasons that we're put in that in those situations to learn or change path or whatever it is, so that we can look back and say, oh, okay, that's why I needed to be there to learn or make a different choice, so that I could end up here in this place, in the next moment, in the next moment, in the next moment.
Totally. I totally agree. And I guess, the big takeaway from all of this is that, not to ignore the whispers of the universe, as it's always communicating to you, and things are happening for you, not to you, And for me, I ignored the little tap that the universe gave me, then the universe gave me a little pinch, and I ignored that as well, until the universe was like, well, girl, I'm going to give you a big slap across the face. I'm going to send you to hospital, because obviously you're not listening and you're so disconnected, from your body. And like I said, the big awakening for me came in the form of a health crisis, but for your audience, it could be totally different. So my mess is 100% my message. I would have not cared about health, self-care, nutrition, if I didn't have to learn these lessons myself. I had to undergo hair loss, thyroid issues, weight drop, amenorrhea, all these things, and visit so many specialists, to be going around and around in circles, to end up in prescription medication. So food was such an obstacle for me, because I tried this and I tried that and nothing worked, because I ended up always kind of coming back to digestive issues. So, fast forward, I am no longer obsessed with food and, seeing the calories or anything like that, because Ayurveda doesn't believe in numbers. It looks at quality, it looks at taste, easy to digest food and nourishment. And now I eat what I want to, and it brings me so much happiness, no? And if I want to eat a bar of chocolate a day, I'll do that, It's about the state of flow, coming back to that notion of flow. It wasn't easy, but, food always brought me anxiety. But now I think, imagine all of that kind of stress and energy I put towards my health. Was it worth it? Absolutely, in one way, but absolutely not in the other, because I didn't know better. But now that I know better, I'm doing better, no? And now food for me is like joy, it's nourishment, food is community, food is health, food is medicine, food is art. And, it's all about finding balance.
And I think so many of us do end up stressed over food, whether we're really aware of it or not, because of all of the messages that come through, frequently through whatever it is, like, count your calories, like you said, or, I shouldn't, even like shaming ourselves for, well, I'm really wanting a chocolate bar, but I shouldn't have one. I shouldn't have a chocolate bar. Nope. So like you end up in this argument with yourself, when it's like, just eat the bar. Like, if that's what your body is craving, there must be a reason for it. I mean, I'm not saying like, maybe don't eat 100 of them, but but this is the thing. And I also want to go back to you saying, the universe giving you a little nudge and a little nudge. We talk about this a lot in some of the coaches that I know and some of the mentors that I have. And actually my mentor, Joanna Hunter, had a huge burnout as well. And she talks about that, like similar to yours, where, the universe starts with a little like, hi, pay attention. And then you're like, oh, that kind of doesn't feel good, but I can push through that. And then it gets, whatever it is, maybe it gets worse, or maybe there's another added, something added on, until, like you said, like if you're not listening, you end up with okay, let me really give you something that you can't ignore. You are done with this situation. You're done. You're in the hospital, and you need to make different choices for yourself. And I think frequently, like you said, that your situation, and in this case, Joanna's, was a physical burnout, physical issues. But for a lot of people, it could be something else. It could be relationships, or it could be, like you said, food things or whatever. But I think food is such a trigger for so many of us, and to be able to, come to a friendship with food, I think for a lot of people would be amazing.
Totally. And I think the other thing as well is, I know I probably sound really harsh on the modern medicine, but, in total, I think, at medical school, they might have had like 30 hours of nutritional training, right? And they're pumping clients like pretty like a drive-through. So I understand as well that they're not equipped for that. So like in my ideal world, like at every like general practitioner, I would love to see a nutritionist or an Ayurvedic coach there, when you go and see the doctor. Okay, now you're going over to your nutritionist and she's going to help you with blah, 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 right? So I understand that concept as well. But it's such an interesting thing when I work with clients and that relationship with food, and this is why Ayurveda is so beautiful. Like I said, it doesn't work on numbers, it's about quality, so and this is why like it lights me up to talk about Ayurveda. And I remember when I first started this journey, like I would just shout it on the rooftops and I would tell anybody about the doshas and stuff, until I realized like I was full on and people were like, you're too much, But then I started getting healthier. And then that's when I started attracting people, like, your skin looks great. What are you using? So I guess, the message is there, you need to be living it. So then people will actually come to you and want to be helped.
I so agree with that as well, because I see it reminds me of um people who find anything, whether it's religion or whatever they get excited about, and then they're shouting it from the rooftops, and you do end up turning people off. But when they see the changes, like you said, like, so when we are living our truth, living our passions, and people see the difference, whether it's in your energy or whether it's in your body or both, all of it, that's when they are really drawn to you, to say, okay, what the heck is she doing that, something's working for her, and I want some of that. And I think
Exactly.
that's a huge message as well, to not be, really, I think a lot of times, I don't know how it is in other parts of the world, but in the Western world here, we definitely want to just shove everything down everyone's throats, and like, I know what's best for you, I know what's best for you, yeah, this work for me, you should do it, whatever it is. And not everybody's going to resonate, or it's not going to resonate with everyone when you're doing that. It's not going to resonate probably with anyone when you're doing that. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, and it's so overwhelming. Like, there's paleo, keto, raw vegan. Like, there's so many things that you can be, like, heading towards. But the thing that I love about Ayurveda, it's like a 5,000-year-old knowledge, and it looks at you as, as a unique individual, right? So what works for you, Laura, may not work for me, and what works for me may not work for your next door neighbor. Whereas in modern society, we're kind of driven by, like, what's this Instagrammer eating? What's this YouTuber eating? That I fell down that road. I went straight into it, and I'm like, if she's eating like a kale salad with a Buddha bowl and a green smoothie each day, then surely, and looks like that, like, why isn't that working for me? But really, that diet that I looked at to people was actually throwing my body out of whack, and it was throwing me too much into the air element. No wonder I had lost weight, I was losing hair and all these things, because that diet was not for me. So once I started to get my head around Ayurveda, and I was like, wow, okay, so I need to be eating the opposite, more grounding foods, more warm foods, more easy to digest foods. And as soon as I started having the sweet potato, the carrots, the curries, the soups, doing more like breath work, and I was like, aha, how is it in 2 weeks that I'm feeling so much better? And yet I was going around in circles in Sydney, and them telling me that, yes, water bowls, green smoothies, kale chips were all amazing, and there's nothing wrong with your diet. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know who to believe now, because all these signs are coming towards me. But Ayurveda was like, grounding, easy to digest, warm, just go back to basics. And I think we overcomplicate things a lot of the times.
Again, I'm just loving everything that you're sharing, because also the other thing that's coming to my mind is how difficult it is for us, because we're here in the United States, we are bombarded with the foods that are packaged and quick and easy and full of chemicals, and we are so, it's just so, we do want what's easy, and we want to what's quick, and with our busy lives, and then you've got kids, and you're off to, you're trying to feed them between school and soccer games, and so what can we do that's fast and easy? Well, we can just drive through a fast food restaurant and get them something, which isn't, we've gone down this complete road of trying to make things fast and easy, not only food wise, but again, like you said, medical wise. Okay,
Mm.
now I don't feel good, I've got a pain, well, here's your pill,
Mhm.
or now here I've eaten terribly, and I've managed to become diabetic, I've put myself into whatever state of medical disrepair I'm in. And so you go to the doctor, and they go, well, just take this pill. No.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
some of the doctors do try to tell you, to eat whatever to be better. But I can tell you, I know people who are diabetic, and the list of food that the doctors tell them they can and can't eat when they're diabetic, I'm like it's sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And I think that we put the doctors up on a pedestal because they know, of course they're going to know. And they they're just, they're, like you said, they're not trained in the things that get to the bottom of the cause of the problem. They're trained in pharmaceuticals. And I'm not saying, there is a place for modern medicine and we need it, but there's also such a bigger place in my mind for what you do and these kind of teachings and getting to know, not be pushed into, because I'm going to go back again to what I said about seeing what works for someone. Like if you see that your friend is going to, for example, Weight Watchers or on the keto diet and that's working for them, then maybe you're jumping on that bandwagon versus, which still may not be the best thing for you. So versus doing, working with someone like you and looking at Ayurveda and like, what can I really do that's best for me? Like balancing my energy, my body, like all the things. And I think that my spirit, that all the things that really could help us in so many better ways.
Yeah, totally. And I guess swimming back to something that you said as well, no, I know 3 years ago when I was living in Sydney, having healthy food is expensive, right? If I'm going to go and have my maca, my quinoa, my camu camu, and having this ashwagandha, it gets really expensive. And this was 3 years ago, right? And from what I hear from my friends and family, that it's probably doubled to what it was now, no? So I understand, if you're a single mum with 3 kids and you have to feed your family, obviously you're not going to go and have this elaborate, organic meal. I understand it if, finances are tight. So I understand the concept of like, okay, I'll just go through McDonald's drive-through and, get my family meal or whatever it is, right? But when you deconstruct Ayurveda as well, like making like a lentil soup, which is so nutritious, is not that expensive. And I think sometimes people overcomplicate diets and, that kind of lifestyle as well. So part of my job is actually convincing people that actually Ayurveda is quite, cost effective, because it's like vegetables and lentils and chickpeas and, curries and stuff that you can actually make in bulk, and you could probably go over it for 2 days, as opposed to, coming back home and, whacking a pizza that's from the frozen right into the oven as well. So this is one of the things that I love, because I love cooking, because it has actually really, really helped me. Like, I was kind of the takeaway queen, when I lived in Sydney, because it's so easy, right? But now I look at foods as medicine and from a different perspective, right? And part of my job, like I said, is like, how do we turn these ingredients into like a really nourishing food that is going to last you 2 days? So you can go out and have a lovely walk with the kids. So you can go out and, go to the gym and not worry that I have to go home and, cook this elaborate meal.
Yeah, it's true. And I think for a lot of people, are coming back to that more. But I know I see so many people that do like Sunday food planning for the week so that they can, hopefully eat a little healthier, or take their lunch that might be a little healthier if they, if they are working in the office or they are working wherever they're working. And they're not just, feeling like, oh, let me run out and grab whatever. I know a lot of people do the food prep stuff and try to get, it does seem like, and people trying, at least in the world I'm in, and I'm probably again in around different people than I used to be around, because my journey has changed as well. But people who are, working more with herbs and grounding and, get out in nature and eat less sugar and processed foods and all these things that we're hopefully realizing aren't the best for us. But I also do love that you are talking about, like, people think, oh, well, again, like whatever the diet is, like, oh, keto, that's got to be the healthiest one, that's such a trend. Like, that's got to be the healthiest one, or, vegan is the healthiest one, or vegetarian's the healthiest one. And I think that, like for me, I chose to not eat meat a few years ago. It's really difficult for me to eat meat now. And I was a steak lover, like, give me a good steak. But at the same time, I don't really want to label myself, because if I go out and I'm hungry for a hamburger today, and, I might have one. And then, so it's, if I'm walking around going, I'm vegan, I'm vegan, I'm vegan. And then somebody goes, but you had a hamburger. Well, how did you have a cheeseburger then? And it's like, okay, but don't, like, no judgment, like, eat. And I think that's the other thing. There's so much judgment around what we eat. And it's like, I see this frequently, even in just people that I'm around, where they'll say, they don't really say it to me, probably because I'm like, I don't go for it, but they'll be like, is that all you're going to eat? Or, is that, oh, you eat so fast, like you eat so fast, or whatever. Like, they're judging other people for how they're eating. And somebody else said this. I mean, I know a lot of people have said this, but somebody else brought it to my attention a few years ago. And this doesn't just apply to food, but it's like, keep your eyes on your own plate. It doesn't affect you how I'm eating or what I'm eating. So, like, stop judging. Like, I don't think the fact that we tend to really focus on what other people are doing or eating helps that. I don't know if I'm getting this point across very well, but it doesn't help us to want to say, well, I'm going to eat what's best for me. And I think it's hard for people to then just, there is so much criticism and judgment around food that you might be kind of quote unquote bullied into, no, I'm going to have dessert. You go ahead. Come on, have dessert with me. Or come on, eat this, whatever it is. I feel like I'm not getting my point across, but
No,
I am.
no, I get it.
You're like, no judgment, like, don't judge other people for what they're eating. And hopefully we can find a way to not accept other people's criticism and judgment and own what we want to do.
But even judging ourselves through the process of eating, like in Ayurveda, we believe, like, if you're eating with guilt, then you're not going to digest that food properly, right? If you're eating with maybe anger, you've just had a fight with your partner or something, you're definitely not going to digest your food. So in Ayurveda, we always recommend, to eat your food really mindfully and really focus on, the nutritious value of it as well. No? And when I work with my clients, I have the 80-20 rule, 80% of the time, eat according to your dosha, have a routine, hydrate. But the other 20% of the time, go and have a burger if you want to, because I know when I first came into Ayurveda, like, I was really kind of, I don't know if the word exists, like orthorexia Ayurveda. Like, I was really like, I can only have nutmeg, I can only have this at 3 p.m. because my agni is like this, like, blah, blah, blah. So I became a little bit obsessed with it because it was working so well for me as well, until, like, I realized, whoa, like, I am way too deep into this. So I'm just going to step back and step back and step back. And now I've found this beautiful kind of balance of the 80-20 rule, in my point of view, because I don't think you should be depriving yourself of things as well. Like, if I really want to have that, I don't know, that pizza, I'm going to go and do it, because then, you came here to have like a human experience, not one of deprivation. So go for it. Go and have that cheesecake, go whatever. But at the other time, have a routine, have, hydration, and have some herbs as well. So everything in Ayurveda is about balance.
And I think the other thing that's coming to mind when you're saying that is more also of, what do I want? Like, take a minute and just think about, okay, do I really want the cheesecake, or am I just angry and upset and I just want to feed my emotion. But if I am really hungry for a piece of cheesecake, then let me have it. Or I think sometimes too, at least I think growing up in the time that I grew up, there was a lot of clean your plate. So like maybe you start to have the cheesecake and you only want 3 bites of it, and then you're feeling guilty because, or whatever it is, maybe it's even a salad and you're like, okay, I don't want to finish the rest of whatever I'm eating. But then there's, like you said, the guilt of, no, I have to eat it all. And I think there's a lot of power in recognizing that, nope, I had enough of whatever it is.
Totally. And how much are you moving after you've had these, those 3 cheesecakes as well? Like, are you just sitting in front of the TV and, I don't know, binging on Netflix? Or are you going out and going, okay, I've had the 3 pieces of cheesecake, but I'm going to go and connect with Pachamama. No, I'm going to go and have this beautiful walk, or connect with friends, and we're all going for a swim. So balance.
Well, and that's it too, the activity as well. I think so many of us, at least here in America, I mean, a lot of people do move and exercise, but a lot of people don't. And I also know that in a lot of other countries, they make it easier for you to, because they have bike trails or they have walking trails in the cities, so that people can walk from their home to the city center, or to ride their bike from the home to the city center. So it's not as easy in the United States, depending on where you live, to have that. And so it's not necessarily encouraged to move as much as we should. Our bodies don't move as much as they should. So,
and your weather as well, like,
and the weather.
Yeah, America right now, I'm imagining it's quite cold. Like, I've got family that lives in upstate New York, and it's cold.
Yeah, up there they did get hit. But here's the thing that I noticed. I have my relatives are from Finland, and so I've been there and visited. And the one time my son and I went, it was in March, which is very cold. People would say to me, "Oh my gosh, you went to Finland in March, wasn't it cold?" Yes, but I knew it was going to be cold, so I was prepared for that.
Yeah.
But what I found really interesting is that they don't let the cold and the darkness, because it also gets dark really early there, they don't let that stop them from moving. They still get out and either ski or ice skate, or some people still in the winter ride their bikes to work, and they get icicles on their eyelashes. And so I really noticed that the difference between that culture and America, where we want to take the least amount of steps from the door to the car and stay warm as we possibly can. So yeah, it's definitely a different mindset. So what else is there anything else you want to share with our listeners today? I feel like we've touched on a lot of great things, and I can't get enough. So I'm probably going to have to connect with you outside of this podcast, because I'm so fascinated by all of this. And I think it's amazing. I'm so grateful that we were able to connect. But is there anything else that, just before we wrap up, that you would like to share?
No, I think like you said, we've gone through so much. I think I've touched on, and I've gone deep with my life as well. Like, not, I haven't really gone deep that much into it with other people. So, thank you so much for letting me share the story. And I hope it, it resonates with somebody out there. And I hope it's ignited a little spark of Ayurveda within you as well.
Well, and this is a big message that one of my passions is to put to have put yourself first, and to make what I call the radical choice of putting yourself first. So I love that you were, talked about that, and the difficulty that it took to do that, but really also kind of being, like you said, slapped in the face and forced into, like, we're not going to stay where we are. So that definitely is one of my one of my passions and one of my messages that resonates with me quite a bit. So I will put in the show notes, I will put how to reach out to you, but do you have a website? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so I love to hang out in my private Facebook group, Ayurveda for Professional Women. So if love going into groups, I discuss everything about Ayurveda. So I love living a low tox life. So I quite often make my own products as well. So if that's of an interest to you as well, come and join me. I love, connecting with people from all over the world, some who may be quite new to Ayurveda and those who are already quite in it. But yeah, I often speak to women, in the corporate world, and they are really quite, it's basically just a job to pay the bills. What I would love to see women is really following their purpose, their big reason, fulfilling their lives, big mission, why you're here. So yeah, once you discover that, like, life just becomes so beautiful and amazing. So yeah.
Well, again, Amayra Morales, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you joining me and sharing your experiences of a funny thing happened on the way to my life. And I want to definitely always thank my listeners for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life podcast. For more information, visit my website at www.lauramuirhead.com.